would say we have to really look at that long and hard, because if we're constantly taking jabs at our spouse, right? Obviously not physical jabs, talking about verbal jabs, right? If you're doing that, realize that you might feel like you're doing it in jest or you're doing it playfully, but there might be an element of truth to it. And even if there's no element of truth in what you're saying, it's still something that can cause pain and distress to your spouse. And as we mentioned before, openness and talking about it is the most essential thing. If you as a spouse see something that is displeasing to you and your spouse, what you need to be able to do is have an open conversation with them. And if you're being criticized about something, right, you also have to tell your spouse that, look, if you want me to change something, let's discuss it and talk about it. Let's not bring it up and try to jab those in there in our daily life when we're trying to be happy and live together in a good functioning manner. All of a sudden, we keep throwing these shots at one another, and it just leads to arguments and discussions. And if we allow it to continue, that's what's going to happen. Arguments will happen when they're not supposed to, and there will be bitter feelings, and you feel hurt after that, and things just don't go well. Another aspect that and Sophia can touch back on that point, but one thing I wanted to mention, that to many of the couples or individuals that come for premarital counseling training with us, we talk about when you're able to communicate and do communication exercises and drills and work together in that realm, what you're able to do is, instead of saying you are the problem, you're able to pause, think about what the issue is, what you want to get across, rephrase it, and produce it in a way where the spouse is not the problem. Rather, what you're doing is, as the spouse, you're presenting the problem and how can we solve it as a family. So, for example, maybe the spouse is complaining that their spouse is always late, and they always get them late to go to places. So they come up to and say, we're always late because of you. I hate when we show up late, and you're always getting us late. You're always taking forever to get ready and all these things. That could be one way of posing it, right? And most likely what you'd hear back from them is, as soon as they say you're always late, they might come back and say, well, your laundry's always on the ground. And you're like, wait a minute, what does you being late have to do with my laundry? Well, what that just happened was that you attacked them. Shaitan came, whispered in their ear and said, oh, he's talking about you being late. Talk about his laundry. Talk about his mom. Talk about his finances. Talk about this. Talk about that. And then it just starts going. And then there's the round one, round two, round three, and we're waiting for like a verbal KO at some point, right? A submission, a tap, something's going to happen. Something's going to give, right? So knowing that when you make the spouse the problem, you're never going to win. When you say this is your problem, it's very, very unlikely the person's going to say, well, yes, I admit to my fault and let me go forward. Nobody likes to be attacked. Nobody likes to be put on the seat where you're the issue, go fix the situation, and let's come back to me when you're fixed. Nobody wants that. Being able to say, as a husband and wife, let's say if we rephrased it, right, using some of the communication skills, I really don't like when we are late, and when we go to places late, it makes me feel uncomfortable when I arrive there. I didn't say you make us late. I said, I don't like when we get late. What can we do as a couple, as a family, to be able to arrive on time or get earlier? And then you sit together and brainstorm, right? You're able to say, okay, well, maybe we could put an alarm 30 minutes before we regularly start getting ready. Maybe I can watch our child, or you can watch our child, and then that'll give you more time to get ready, or I can take care of this and that'll give you more time to get ready. So instead of making the person the problem and saying, you go fix everything, you're able to say, okay, here's the issue. How can we both tackle it? This is what you're going to do to help me, and this is what I'm going to do to help me. So you both met in the middle, opposed to saying you're the issue, you're the problem, criticism, criticism, criticism. And that criticism basically means you have an issue, I want you to fix it. And then once you get it fixed, then I'll basically be able to be like, okay, now I'm happy. That's just not how life works. You have to be able to work with your spouse. May it be a child, may it be a parent, any relationship. You have to be able to work with that person and being able to develop that relationship, that communication is essential. So you want to?
Yeah, I'll just end off with a practical tip in this realm. So that there was a certain issue that we were having, and whenever I heard Mahad say it, I hated hearing it. Like it made me not want to do that, or it made me just like averse, right? And so instead, I was like, if you can just send a text message, that way, one is we've already agreed to the terms that I'm okay with hearing this thing when it's in a text message, but I can't stand it when you're asking, or when it's said in a joking way, or it's said sarcastically, right? So I couldn't stand it verbally, but I said I can stand it in a text, because there's no nonverbal communication in that. There's no anger in that. It might be just a very direct text.